A hot autumn. The weather had been fine and still for more than a month. The black soil of Bryanchina, the blessedly fertile region between Oral and Bryansk, shimmered a chocolate or coffee brown under the blue, cloudless sky. The main street, which was part of the highway, cut straight across the town. On one side of it had been houses that were blown up and turned into piles of rubble by mines, and uprooted, splintered, and charred fruit trees from the blasted gardens. Nor were there any houses on the other side, but it was less ravaged by fire and explosions, probably because it had consisted largely of vacant lots and thus offered no targets for destruction. On the side where there had once been houses, the homeless inhabitants were poking about in the still smoldering ashes, picking up odds and ends in different corners of the ruins and putting them all together in one place. Others were busy making dugouts and cutting strips of turf with which to roof them. The vacant lots across the road were white with tents and crowded with auxiliary service trucks and horse-drawn wagons of all kinds, field ambulances. Cut off from the divisional staffs, and units of every sort of commissariat and depot, lost and mixed up and trying to sort themselves out. And here, too, weedy boys from the replacement companies, in grey caps, with heavy, rolled-up overcoats on their backs, their faces earthy, drawn, and wasted from dysentery, rested their packs and had a sleep and a snack before trudging on farther west. Half the gutted, blown-up town was still burning, and in the distance delayed action mines kept exploding. Every now and then, people digging in their yards straightened their bent backs, leaned on their picks, and rested, turning and gazing in the direction of a blast. There, the grey, black, brick-red clouds of smoke, flame, and rubble rose into the sky, first in jets and fountains, then more lazily, like heavily rising scum, then fanning and spreading into plumes. Finally they scattered and sank back to earth. Then the diggers went on with their work. Across the road from the ruins there was an open space bordered by a hedge and shaded by tall old trees. The trees and the hedge isolated it from the rest of the world, like a private courtyard, shaded and cool. Here Tanya, the laundry girl, together with several people from her unit, as well as others who had joined them, including Dudarov and Gordon, had been waiting since morning for the truck that had been sent for her. The regimental laundry entrusted to her care was packed in several crates that stood piled one on top of the other on the ground. Tanya kept a close eye on it, and the rest of the group remained in sight for fear of missing the chance of a lift. They had been waiting a long time, more than 5 hours. With nothing to do, they listened to the incessant chatter of the garrulous girl, who had seen a great deal in her life. At the moment she was telling him of how she had met Major General Zhivago. Of course. Yesterday. They took me to the general himself. Major General Zhivago. He was passing through here, and asking everyone about Christina. He was looking for eyewitnesses, people who had known her personally. They pointed me out to him. They said we'd been friends. He told them to bring me along. So they came and got me. He didn't scare me a bit. Nothing special about him, just like everybody else. He's got slit eyes and black hair. Well, I told him what I knew. He heard me out and said thank you. And who are you? He said to me. Where do you come from? Well, naturally, I was shy. What have I got to boast about? I'm a bez prizornaya, one of the homeless children. And all that. I don't have to tell you. Reformatories, always on the move. But he kept at me. Let's have it, he said. Don't be embarrassed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Well, at first I couldn't say much. Then I told him a bit more, and he kept nodding his head. Then as he went on nodding, I wasn't afraid any longer. And it's true, I've got a lot to tell. You wouldn't believe it if I told you. You'd say, she's making it up. Well, it was the same with him. When I finished, he got up and started walking up and down the room. That's extraordinary, he said. Really extraordinary. I'll tell you what, he said. I haven't got time now. But I'll find you again, you can be sure of that. I'll find you and send for you again. I never thought I'd hear a thing like that. I won't leave you this way, he said. I've just got to take care of a few things. And then, who can tell, I might put myself down as your uncle, you'll be promoted to being general's niece. And I'll send you to a university, he said. Anywhere you like. I swear to God, that's what he said. Probably a joke, just to tease me. At this moment a long, empty cart with high sides, of the kind used for carting hay in Poland and West Russia, drove up. The two horses in their shaft harness were driven by a soldier from the Horse Transport Corps who in the old days would have been called a wagoner. He pulled up, jumped down from his seat, and began to unhitch the cart. Everyone except Tanya and one or two soldiers crowded around him, begging him to take them wherever they were going, telling him, of course, that they would make it worth his while. But the driver refused, saying he had no right to use the cart or the horses except as he was ordered. He led the horses away and was not seen again. Tanya and the others, who until then had been sitting on the ground, all climbed into the empty cart, which had been left standing in the field. The conversation, interrupted by its arrival and by the argument with the driver, was resumed. "What did you tell the general?" asked Gordon. "Tell us, if you can." "Why not? I'll tell you." And so she told them her terrible story. 4. Yes, it's true that I've got a lot to tell. They say I don't come from poor people. Whether strangers told me or I somehow remembered it, I don't know, but I've heard it said that my mother, Raisa Komarova, was the wife of a Russian cabinet minister, Comrade Komarov, who was in hiding in White Mongolia. But I guess Komarov was not my real father. Well, of course, I'm not an educated girl. I grew up an orphan without a father and mother. Perhaps what I say seems funny to you, but I'm only saying what I know. You have to put yourselves in my place. Yes. Well now, what I'm going to tell you. It all happened beyond Krushitsi, the other end of Siberia, beyond the Cossack country, near the Chinese border. When we the Reds, that is, moved up to the chief town of the Whites, that same Komarov, the minister, he put my mother and all those families on a special train and ordered it to take them away. My mother was frightened. You see, she didn't dare to move a step without him. This Komarov didn't know about me. He didn't know that I even existed. My mother had me when she had been parted from him for a long time, and she was frightened to death that somebody might tell him. He hated children terribly, and he yelled and stamped his feet. "They only bring filth and worry into the house. I can't stand it," he used to yell. Well now, as I was saying, when the Reds began to come up to the town, my mother sent to Nagornaya station for Marfa, the signal woman. That was 3 stations away from the town. I'll tell you how it was. First there was Nizhevaya, and then there was Nagornaya, and then there was the Samsonov Pass. Now I think I understand it, why mother knew this signal woman. I think this signal woman, Marfa, used to come and sell milk and vegetables in the town. That's it. And here is something I don't know. I think they cheated mother, they didn't tell her the truth. The Lord only knows what sort of story they told her. I suppose they said it was just for a time, for a day or two, till things settled down. She didn't mean to give me to strangers forever. To be brought up by strangers' mother could not have given up her own child like that. Well, you know how it is with a child. Go and talk to auntie, she'll give you a piece of gingerbread. Nice auntie, don't be frightened of auntie. How I cried afterwards, how heartbroken I was, how I missed my mother. It's better not to remember that. I wanted to hang myself. I nearly went out of my mind as a small child. That was all I was at that time. I suppose Aunt Martha got money for my keep, a lot of money. There was a rich farm that went with the signal job. A cow and a horse and of course all kinds of fowl, and a big place for vegetables out there. You could get as much land as you liked and of course no rent because the house belonged to the government. It was right next to the tracks. When the train was coming from home, it could hardly get up the hill, it was so steep, but coming from your parts, from Russia, down it came so fast they had to use the brakes. Down below, in the autumn, when the woods thinned out, you could see Nagornaya as if it was set on a saucer. The signalman, Uncle Vasily, I used to call just Daddy. He was a kind and cheerful man, only terribly trusting, especially when he was drunk. Everybody knew all there was to know about him all over the countryside. He'd turn his heart inside out to every stranger he met. But the signal woman I never could call mother. Whether it was because I couldn't forget my own mother or for some other reason, the fact is Aunt Martha really was terrible. Yes. And so I called the signal woman Aunt Martha. Well, time went on, years went by, how many I don't know. I was beginning to go out to the trains to wave the flag, and I could bring the cow in or unhitch the horse. Aunt Martha taught me to spin, and as for the housework, it goes without saying I did that. Anything like sweeping or tidying or doing a bit of cooking, that was nothing to me. I did all that. Oh, yes, and I forgot to tell you, I looked after Petya. Our Petya had withered legs. He was 3 but he couldn't walk at all, so I carried him around. And now, after all those years, I still get shivers down my back when I think of how Auntie Martha used to squint at my strong legs as much as to say, why weren't my legs withered? It would be better if I had withered legs instead of her Petya, as if I'd put the evil eye on him. You wouldn't believe what spite and superstition there is in the world. But now listen to what I'm going to tell you. All that was nothing to what happened later. It'll make your hair stand on end. It was the time of Nep. 1,000 rubles was worth a kopeck. Uncle Vasya sold a cow down below and got 2 sacks full of money. Karenki it was called. No. Sorry, they were called lemons then, that's what they were called. He had a drink and told everyone in Nagornaya how rich he was. I remember it was a windy day in autumn. The wind was tearing at the roof, it nearly knocked you off your feet, and the engines couldn't get uphill because the wind was head on. Suddenly I saw an old beggar woman coming down from the top of the hill, the wind tugging at her skirt and blowing off her kerchief. She was walking along and moaning and clutching her belly. She asked us to take her in, and we put her on the bench. Oh, she yelled, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. My belly is on fire. This is my end. In Christ's name, she begged, take me to the hospital, I'll pay you whatever you like. Well, Daddy hitched Udaloy, the horse, to the cart, put the old woman in the cart, and took her to the county hospital, which was 11 miles away. After a time we went to bed, Aunt Martha and I, then we heard Udaloy neighing outside and the cart driving into the yard. It seemed a bit too soon for them to be back. But anyway Aunt Martha lit a light, put on her jacket, and undid the bolt without waiting for Daddy to knock. She opened the door, but it wasn't Daddy, it was a stranger, dark and frightening, and he said, show me where the money is that you got for the cow. I've killed your old man in the wood, he said, but you being a woman, I'll let you alone if you tell me where the money is. If you don't tell me, you know what will happen. You'll only have yourself to blame, and better not keep me waiting. I don't have any time to hang around. Oh, God in heaven, need I tell you the state we were in? You can imagine, yourselves. We were shaking all over, half dead with fright and speechless with terror. First Uncle Vasia was killed, he'd said so himself, he'd killed him with an axe, and now we were alone with him, a murderer right in our house. We could see he was a murderer. I suppose it was just then that Aunt Martha went out of her mind. The moment she heard her husband was dead, something snapped inside her. And she knew she mustn't show how she felt. First she threw herself at his feet. "Have mercy on me," she said. "Don't kill me. I don't know a thing. I've never heard about any money. I don't know what money you are talking about." But he wasn't going to be put off with that. He wasn't such a fool, the devil. "All right, then," she told him. "The money is in the cellar. I'll open the trap door for you." But the devil saw right through that. "No," he said, "you go down, you know the way, you get it. I don't care if you go down to the cellar or up on the roof, all I want is the money. But remember, don't try to pull any tricks," he said, "it doesn't pay to fool with me." Then she said to him, "God be with you. Why are you so suspicious? I'd gladly go down and get it for you myself, but my legs are bad, I can't manage the ladder. I'll stand on the top step and hold the light for you. Don't worry, I'll send my daughter down with you," she said. That was me she meant. Oh, God in heaven, need I tell you how I felt when I heard that? Well, that's the end of me, I thought, and everything went black in front of my eyes and my legs wouldn't hold me up. I thought I'd fall down. But that devil, he was no fool. He took one look at both of us and screwed up his eyes and